And let me go ahead and get folks checked in. I see we have Denny Dillinger. Mr. Dillinger, if you could unmute, tell me who you're representing here today.
Hi, my name's Denny Dellinger. I'm an architect working for Jim Shapiro and Ellie Friedman, the owners of the property, to try to get this zoning appeal approved.
Okay, great. And I see we have Jim Shapiro. Mr. Shapiro, did I hear that you're the owner or?
No, I'm the local property manager for the owner. I have been managing the property since for quite a while now. I'm not even sure. We took over the property. It was set up as a 4-unit building, which we thought is what it was. We didn't realize that at some point it had changed. When we were looking to do some other things, that became an issue.
Mr. Shapiro, let me just stop you just for a second. We'll get into the substance.
Okay.
Just one
My
second.
apologies.
A few more administrative things I had to cover. I just wanted to make sure that everything was working properly, and I checked you in before we got started. So give me just 1 minute.
Okay.
I'll let you have the floor. I see we also have Matt Lashad with us here today. Mr. Lashad, welcome. Mr. Lashad is the zoning plans.
Good morning.
Okay, I need to read through our hearing script, then we'll jump into it. So this will just cover the procedure for the hearing. The May 10th, 2023 session of the zoning hearing examiner docket. The case before us today is case number ZHUV230003. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and supplemental rules of the zoning hearing. Party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. If we did have anyone here from the public, they would have an opportunity to speak after the applicant had presented its case. In the event that, or I'm sorry, I'll also give Matt Lashad an opportunity to provide any testimony in addition to his staff report if you would like. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to respond to that testimony. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. So for our purposes here today, I'll let Mr. Dillinger and Mr. Shapiro tell me about this request, why they think it's appropriate, anything they think is important for me to know before I make a decision. I'll let Matt weigh in. I'll have some questions along the way. I'll let you guys make any closing remarks, and then we'll wrap it up. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony, which is generally evidence you want to introduce that consists of statements made by someone who's not present here today. In the event of any technical difficulties with the Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, last thing I need to do is just swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So if that's you, if you could raise your right hand, I need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I do.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. All right, Mr. Shapiro, did you want to start?
I'll do my best to be brief, because Danny's really the key for our side of this matter. I took over managing the property. The owner had bought it and understood it to be legal 4-unit apartment building. When we were looking at doing some other things, including potentially selling it, we became aware that the zoning was not consistent with the current usage. And we started this process. We know there's a desperate need for affordable housing in our community. And there's really not a giant need for another office space on Glenway Avenue. And we felt there was a reasonable request. We knew there's some challenges and code differences and the parking, but we were hopeful we could make this change. And as we explored the options, we were told we needed a architect to work on the plans and the process. And I identified Mr. Dellinger, who I've known for a long time. I've never worked with him before. And we engaged Mr. Dellinger to help us through this process. The property has been used, I believe, as a 4-unit apartment building since the early 2010s, 2014 or so. I later became, and what drove this, under the category of no good deed goes unpunished, when we took over the building, the first floor apartments both were on a very old electric panel with fuses, the oldest kind, where if you put your finger past, you're touching the wires. And I had an older woman who was very shaky, and I didn't want her having to put her fingers past. And so I engaged an electrician, a licensed electrician, to upgrade the electric, and we put in 4 new panels and 4 new meter bases. Actually, 5. There was a house panel and 4 new unit panels. We carefully went through the process of separating the first floor apartment 1 and 2 that were on one panel and put them on their separate panels. Everything was done. We pulled permits and everything was good. And we contacted IBI to get the inspections. And they said, "Oh, this isn't zoned right. We can't do this." And that's what kicked off this process. I can tell you, when I took over that building, it was not a building that anyone would be proud to own. We've done a lot of improvements. We've done a lot of, it was a mess. It's no longer a horrible mess. And separating the electric was the next step in that process so that people could have their own. And, we had nothing but good intentions in both improving the building and separating the electric and getting rid of this very old primitive, little fuse box with 4 little fuses that, and all the wires are exposed. There wasn't anything blocking them. If you slipped, you were touching hot lines. And so that's what kicked this off. God, this has been a few years already. And then we learned the IBI, and then we tried, and that's what started and led us to where we are today. We have in every step in this process attempted to increase available housing or maintain it, improve the property, make it safer, make it better. And that's where we are today. Hopefully we will get approved and can continue to operate this as a 4-unit apartment building. We've got very nice people living in those units. We have taken care of the building. He's spent a lot of money improving the building, and that's where we are. At that point, we hired Denny.
Okay. Just a couple quick questions. So you acquired the building in 2019, or the owner acquired the building in 2019?
I can answer that in a moment.
Okay.
Whatever the auditor page says.
Okay. Sure, I can look at it. When you purchased it, it had 4 units, and you went to make some electrical upgrades, and that's when you discovered that it was not actually permitted for 4 units.
It wasn't zoned, permitted, zoned, whatever the right term is. It had a different, I don't know if it was zoning or land use.
I can add something to that, please.
It was originally bought, to answer your question, in June of 2019. And it's our impression that the prior owner didn't make the changes to the building. It was the owner before that. Sometime around 2014, I think they acquired it and converted those first floors from an office to 2 separate apartments.
Got it. Okay. Mr. Dillinger, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just that the conversion from the medical office to the apartments was really a very simple modification. They simply blocked up a passageway between 2 areas of the building, and we presume that they modified the kitchens and bathrooms at that time, but no way to really know for sure. At any rate, there was no permit applied for or issued when that modification was changed. So we're required to apply for a new building permit. Now, furthermore, since the building code has changed in the last few years, this is a type R2 occupancy, which just in the last few years is required to have a sprinkler system, which would clearly be excessively prohibitive in this case. So we went through a Chapter 34 review to demonstrate compliance without the sprinkler system. And we were able to do that, but in order to do that, we have to upgrade the fire rating of the existing apartment doors to a 90-minute door and frame. So that's some additional work that's going to be done to improve the safety of the building that wouldn't have been done prior if they had applied for and gotten a permit a few years ago when this modification was made. And
Gotcha.
furthermore, another part of the appeal has to do with parking, and this is on the intersection of Glenway and a residential street where all of the other houses have driveways and garages. And there has never been a complaint that we're aware of parking because of the people that live in this building. And I'm not sure that they all have cars anyway, because it is right on a bus line. So we feel it's appropriate to grant the approval for this project for the reasons that Jim cited, and especially to continue to preserve affordable housing in the city.
Gotcha. Okay. So there have been a number of improvements since you purchased it, or since it was purchased, most recently purchased, to improve the property. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Here, I got an email late last night or early this morning that was forwarded to me that is from a resident on the street. I threw it into Project Docs this morning as soon as I saw it, but I wanted to read it into the record so that you guys could respond to this. It's from a resident on Ralph Avenue. As a resident of Ralph Avenue, we have directly seen the decline of care of the building, and the quality of tenants. Multiple tenants, including one currently living on the first floor, deals drugs. There are kids living in the building that are forced to live in a small apartment where drugs are dealt. Having one less apartment on the first floor would make it less likely for us to have another bad resident living in our neighborhood. We object to this. It's generally an objection to the application. Did you guys want to respond to that at all?
Yeah, I'm happy to respond to that. First, and I'll be happy to show you some photographs of the interior of some of these units that we've, they were not very nice to start with. There's a family living on the first floor, has been very nice, been there since we started. The man on the second floor, the other apartment on the first floor. Now, this is the first I've ever heard about drug dealing. And I deal with drug dealing. I manage 550 apartments and homes in the city. And drug dealing is not, I evict people for drugs all the time. We're in the middle of evicting the man on the first floor that may be involved with this. He was an older fellow, moved in, and then has been nothing but a problem, and we're kicking him out. I have worked with other people in that building. In fact, I've worked with a program called Help Cincinnati, who works with returning citizens. And they've given me some very good people who they work closely with, who've come out of prison, and we give an opportunity for, and we've had no issues with them, the upstairs tenants. And eviction's a challenge in our city. We live in a city with a very high poverty rate. I deal with problem situations, and we all know drugs. Drugs went off the front page, but they didn't go off the news. They didn't go away from our neighborhoods. The drug issues all across our city, and the shootings. I just learned today that another of my tenants was shot. Supposedly a random shooting on 7th, driving on the highway. He caught a bullet. And we are evicting the guy on the first floor. We have been very responsive to these issues over there. I have, can I share with you photographs of what, some of these apartments look like? Would that matter?
Sure.
When they say the building has declined, honestly, they don't really know because they haven't been in them. And the issues of problem people are a challenge for us. We do very aggressive screening. Biggest problem I have is people we turn down say horrible things about us, but we screen for income, prior criminal record, prior landlord history, credit history. We are very, I work with the Real Estate Investor Association, and I'm the one who teaches people how to screen tenants. And, the gentleman on the first floor was a 50-some-odd-year-old man. He came with his parents. He was nice as could be, and then he lost his job, and everything has been downhill. And we've got eviction lined up for him. And when I have a problem, I evict them. The people on the first floor are a delightful family. They're Hispanic. I can't always talk to the mom, but the kids are well taken care of. The house is taken care of. We replaced kitchen cabinets were falling apart. When we took over that apartment, the shower wall was all the tile was gone, and there was a piece of vinyl flooring, duct tape below the faucets, and that's what the shower wall was. And now we've got a beautiful shower and a beautiful bathroom and a redone kitchen, and they're living in a clean, stable, and I was trying to give them safe electric, which is what kicked off this whole process, so that they weren't working off of 60, 80-year-old fuse boxes from the original construction. So I appreciate the neighbor's concern. One fewer apartment along Glenway Avenue is not going to change the character of the Glenway Avenue, community. And we do our best. And the other complaint I get is, Jim, you evict all these people. Well, when someone moves in and I immediately have a simple practice. If I get word of drug activity in an apartment, I give them notice and I kick them out. I have never found a drug dealer will stop dealing drugs. And I just, the law lets me do that. Our leases for our apartments are all 1 month term. They are 12-month start, but either party can terminate on a 1 month notice, because I have to have a way to get rid of drug dealers. I can tell you, at another house actually on Glenway Avenue, 4462 Glenway, a woman moved in, her 18-year-old son started dealing drugs that's on the corner of Rutledge and Glenway. They called Housing Opportunities Made Equal to complain, and they called me and said, Jim, why are you evicting these people? I said, because their son is dealing drugs. They said, oh, and people at Housing Opportunities Made Equal know me well. I'm also on the board of directors of an organization called Housing Mediation Services, co-sponsored by the Apartment Association, the Real Estate Investors Association, and Housing Opportunities Made Equal. I work to do a good job in our city, and the challenges of our, somewhere between 40%, poverty rate, and our high issues of drugs and violence is a challenge for everyone. And it's especially a challenge for housing providers who, everyone needs a place to live, but they have to follow our rules. And that man, he would have been evicted already, but the woman, just like so many people have trouble hiring people, I hired someone and she delivered all the notices and then she quit, never called us again. And we had to start over, but I believe we have a court date with him. And if I could share my screen, I will show you what the apartment that she described as an unfair place for these children to live in.
Sure. Yeah. I don't really need to hear testimony about the eviction proceedings.
No, I'm
if you
saying
could,
the
show me
conditions
pictures.
that were described as it's unfair for these children to live in them.
Yeah, that's fine. You can show those.
Let me, this is apartment. Oh, wait a minute. I do actually have photos of all the apartments. Forgive me, I will have them in a second. I had them all figured out. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. While you're looking for that, why don't we
Right.
give Matt, if you
Okay,
have
go
anything
ahead.
you wanted to add?
Sure. So yeah, I'll just go over some of the main points in the staff report. They're requesting conditional use approval and a parking variance. Conditional use approval is required in the CCM district for ground floor residential. Some of the CCM districts are more neighborhood business districts where we want to see more retail uses, restaurants, neighborhood serving businesses on the ground floor. I don't really feel that that's the case here. This is a more mixed use residential area. So I would support conditional use approval for residential use on the ground floor here, even if it were a new project. Speaking to the parking variance, as the applicant stated, there's a bus line there. Seems to be parking on the street. It's an older neighborhood. This building and all the other buildings around it were built prior to the adoption of the zoning code, prior to even the requirement to have parking. So I don't really see too much of an issue with approving a variance for that. The drug issue that was brought up is not a zoning or land use issue that we can address as a part of this hearing. I'm not sure that 1 or 2 apartments would impact it anyway, but it's not something that we can really solve through the zoning process. So with that, I would recommend approval of the 2 pieces of zoning relief, conditional use and the parking variance. And I'm here for any questions or thoughts.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your testimony and your work on the staff report here. Okay, I'm going to go back to Jim and Denny. Jim, if you have those pictures, welcome to share them.
Well, I had the folder. I don't know what I just did with it. I looked at it a minute ago. Please continue.
Well, so we're at the portion now where you guys can make any closing remarks or.
Can I make a comment here, David?
Sure.
As Matt pointed out, there is parking on the street. There's also a 2-car garage that's part of the structure that's not currently used for parking, but could be used for parking and would count to satisfy the required parking. And I'd also like to point out that if it was a commercial use, it would almost certainly have a greater parking demand than the residential use that's there. And regarding the general appearance and upkeep of the building, I mean, I think it's a beautiful building. It's excellently maintained. There's no cracked windows. There's no graffiti. There's no litter in the yard. It's mowed. It's every time I've seen it, it's been exceptionally well maintained. So I don't know how somebody might have concluded that there was drug dealing going on, but you kind of suspect that wherever you are, I guess.
Sure. You said there's a 2-car garage?
Yeah, it's actually in the basement, in the lower level. The driveway slopes down.
Mm-hmm. And there's 2 that has room for 2 cars there?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. All right. Mr. Shapiro, anything else you'd like to provide in closing or otherwise before we adjourn?
I'm sorry I can't find these photos because I really would have liked to have shown them to you. Will that matter? I mean, I have.
So, if you'd like to add them as a part of the official record, you can email them to me.
Okay, this is the other unit, and I will find them. This kitchen was falling apart. New cabinets. That bathtub used to be in the middle of the room with a wall. The window was behind it. It was an old window, the whole wall. There was no daylight. There was nothing really functioning in it. The hole for the drain was in the middle of the room. And so they created a tub around it. Now it's a nice bathroom. The kitchen's redone. Unit 1, the cabinets were falling off the wall. The floors were rotten. We've redone all the cabinets. We've redone the bathroom. I swear to gosh, I had that picture a minute ago, and I can't find it now. Funny.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
So I've had a chance to review the staff report and the application materials. am familiar with this stretch of Glenway. I think based on that and based on the testimony that I've heard here today, that I am going to approve the application. So let's go ahead and here. If you want, why don't you go ahead and email these to me? My email is on
Okay.
the screen here. I am approving the application,
Thank
so
you.
I can add those pictures to the official case record. There is a 30-day appellate period for these, so if you'd like these to be a part of the record, if an appeal were to happen, I'm happy to add those. But on this level, I'm going to approve. I do generally agree that without substantially more evidence of, adverse effects caused by the lack of maintenance of this building, that allegations of drug dealing of one of the residents, I don't think is a valid reason to deny an otherwise, I think, project that does meet the standards of the zoning code. And so, like I said, I'm going to approve this. I need to formalize that approval in a written decision. Typically what I do is I will type that out, put it into a PDF. As soon as it's complete, I will email it to you. You guys will have it really just moments after it's complete. Once you have that PDF decision, you'll be able to work with Matt to approve the permitting. Any questions about the process at all, or anything else?
No, it's very clear. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That's great, David. We appreciate it, Matt. We appreciate your assistance. We're trying to do something good here. I put up pictures of 3 of the units. The one the children are living in, I'm looking for them. But I think you could see from the photos I showed, this is not a poorly maintained building. And over time, we'd like to do more to it. I mean, that's the owner's intent.
Yeah, based on the evidence that I've seen in the record, I also agree that it's properly maintained, and I think that this is perfectly appropriate place to have 4 units, particularly considering the fact that it's been used that way for 10 years.
I expect it's
And
probably a
just
lot longer than that it's been used that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard 2014 earlier, but it sounds like no one knows for sure when it was actually transitioned from the office to the residence. Is that right?
Yeah, it could probably be determined with some research if we knew who the original doctor was, and could somebody really wanted to go to the effort to determine that, but it's kind of a moot point at this point anyway.
I think it is. Yeah. Okay, well, great. If you guys have any questions in the meantime, you have my email address, Mr. Shapiro. If you'd like to send those pictures, you can send it to my email. I said at the beginning, these decisions typically take about 2 weeks. I'd say based on the current queue that I have, that's a good estimate. If you guys would like a status update on that decision, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to provide that to you. And yeah, hope everyone has a great day. Thanks again for your time and your testimony.